Hey everybody, Jason here. In this video I wanted to show you guys how to make a knife sheath on a budget. If you're just starting out and you don't have a lot of the expensive leather tools and you still want to know how to make something of good quality, I'll show you how to do that. Bear in mind, I do not recommend doing it like this. This is how I started out, and if you're starting out, more than likely this is how most of us do it. So I'll just give you guys some ideas and tricks to put together a really good quality sheath. It's not going to look that great, but it will function. It will function great. So first off, you're going to need your sheath template, and I'm not going to go into detail about that. If you want to learn how to make one of these, I have a video on that, how to make a leather knife sheath template. Watch that first if you need to, but obviously you'll need that. Get yourself a razor blade for cutting. Lighter, couple needles, your stitching, pens, scissors. You don't need the high quality leather shears that I have. Pretty much any scissors will work. Clothespins, some paper towels, something so you can do some sanding. I have this cheap sanding block. I don't even remember where I got it. And then a hand drill if you can. If you don't have a hand drill, you can use your leather awls, which are somewhat cheap. You can pick up a leather awl for poking holes, but this is going to be a lot more work. I was trying to choose things that most people have laying around the house. If you don't have a hand drill, I mean, it's a cheap Black & Decker. I got it at Walmart for 20 bucks brand new. They're not really expensive. And make sure your drill bit is pretty small. You're going to be using the drill for drilling the stitching holes, and the drill bit I use is a 5/64. But you can use whatever size you want. So, like I said, trying to pick out some items I think most people have laying around the house. And I think most of us do have this stuff laying around the house. The two things that are main... Whoops, I actually forgot. You're going to need some glue. Forgot the glue. I'm using Elmer's waterproof wood glue. Make sure you get some glue. The two main things that are fairly important is make sure you're using some good leather and some good stitching. You can get some really good quality leather stitching for cheap. This is like $3 for a roll, and you guys probably have some needles laying around the house for sewing or whatever if you got wives or girlfriends. But those are probably the two most important things. You gotta get some good stitching at least. Don't use thread for clothes. That's just not gonna work. This is the artificial flat wax sinew that I use for everything. And again, it's like $3 for a roll. And then we'll get started. Okay, step one, take your template and get yourself some veg tan leather. I recommend 8 to 9 ounce veg tan. I'm not going to go into detail about the leather. That's something that you guys are going to have to figure out on where to get your leather. Maybe you have a friend who has some. You can go down to Tandy Leather and they sell some small sections of bellies. Hobby Lobby sells some scrap leather. But as far as the gluing comes, you really do want to use veg tan. But so I can't really go into detail with that. I don't know where you guys get it. But so get yourself some veg tan. And first thing is just outline your template. We're just going to trace this on there and then cut it out with a razor blade. Stay on the lines as much as you can. Okay, here's the sheath. It's all cut out. And so now what we're going to do, because we're on a budget, take your razor. We have no edge beveler. We have no stitching groovers. So we're going to use our razor blade and we are going to edge bevel this. And you're just going to take your razor blade and go along here real slow and smooth, and you're just going to take off just a tiny bit. It is not going to look that great. Don't freak out. No matter how well you try to do this, it is not going to come out perfect. And don't cut yourself like I'm about to do. So there's one side. I'll do that round part in a minute. You want to try to take off an even amount. I'm not doing that good of a job. Okay, trying to zoom in. As you can see, the edges have been beveled. I beveled both sides, and I just did that with the razor, with the hand razor. Those edge bevelers can cost anywhere from, I think, 10 to 20 bucks upwards, and if you guys can't afford that, you can use your razor from home or in your toolbox. Let's see if you guys can see that. So, not a bad job doing it by hand that way. Okay, next we're going to make our stitching holes for the belt loop. And I'm just going to use my drill. I'm just going to mark them and drill them out because we have no hole punch because we're on a budget. So I'm just going to mark them with my pen and then I'll go outside. We'll go to the shop and we will drill these out. I'm just going to eye them. It doesn't have to be perfect. And we're just going to make a very simple one. And we're going to drill these out, and then we'll fold it over and mark it on the other side, and then we'll drill those. Alright guys, I got my drill, my 5/64 drill bit. Find yourself a nice clean piece of wood to put this on. I got the holes marked, and we're just going to go ahead and drill them. Alright, the back looks pretty good. Again, using the hand drill, because we have no drill press. Why? Because we're on a budget. So, use your hand drill or your awl. Now I'm going to fold this over. And I'm going to mark this. Take the pen through the holes. Mark them on the other side, and then drill those out. You can barely see it. But that'll work, and then we'll drill these out. Next step, we're going to make the welt, and what you're going to want to do is just use your sheath template, and we're just going to trace around kind of where we already cut. Just trace around one side of the template. Just like that. And then we're gonna just kind of freehand this about 3/8. Hopefully you guys can see that. I'm using a light pen. And we'll cut that out with the razor blade. When you're cutting, make sure you put a cutting board underneath it too so you don't dull your blade or scratch up your table, whatever you're using. Okay, we have our welt cut out, and next step is we're going to glue it on. Before you do that, make sure you do a couple of test fits on this. Fold over your sheath. Do as many test fits as you need to. Trim it to whatever size you want it to be. Trim it to fit, and then we'll glue it. And these are the only two pieces we need. And we'll go ahead and we'll glue that on. And you're going to need your clothespins and some paper towels handy so you don't make a mess. Take your finger and spread it to all edges. Don't just leave a line in the middle. Make sure it covers the entire piece of leather. And then when you're done with this, you gotta go wipe off your finger real quick in the sink. Take the welt and just line it up as carefully as you can. Press it down. Don't freak out about glue oozing out. That's actually a good thing. Then you'll have a nice clean seam. Make sure you line up the welt as well as you possibly can. There you go. We'll let that sit and dry for about 30 minutes and then we'll stitch up the belt loop. Okay, the welt is glued on. It's been about 30-45 minutes. and the welt's glued on. So next thing we're going to do, we are going to just stitch the back belt loop together, and then we'll fold over and glue it. We're just going to stitch this. I'm not going to be slicking any edges. Why? I don't have an edge slicker. Because we're on a budget. I'm not going to be dyeing or finishing anything yet. I don't have any dye or finish because I'm on a budget. So we're just going to stitch this on. I'm probably going to oil the whole sheath at the end. We'll figure out something to do. But let's just stitch the belt loop on. I'm not going to go into detail. I have a video on how to saddle stitch, so I'm not really going to show that. I'm just going to go ahead and stitch this part, and then we'll get to the next part. Alright guys, we got the belt loop stitched up nice and tight. Is pretty ugly. That's okay. We're on a budget. Did I mention we're on a budget? Yes. Okay, so like I said, I'm not going to go into detail about how to saddle stitch. I've got a couple of videos on how to do that. If you have no idea how to do that, go back and watch the saddle stitching video first, and then maybe come back to this one. There's the belt loop, came out real nice. Now we're going to go ahead and fold it over and glue it shut. Alright, the glue's dried. We're going to take off the clothespins and the paper towels, and then we're going to go sand the edge. It came out pretty good. We've got some pretty rough edges. This is going to take a lot of hand sanding. Now we're going to have to use the hand sander. And so I'm going to go out into the shop and we'll do that. Alright guys, I'm going to take my block sander. I'm not sure what grit this paper is. Looks like it's probably around 120 or something. And we're going to have to sand the edges, this edge by hand. Because I don't have a belt sander right now, right? Because, you know, budget. So we're going to do this by hand. I was sanding for about maybe 10 minutes, and doesn't look too bad, I guess. It's been a while since I hand sanded leather, an edge like that, so looks pretty cool. I actually ended up using a little bit lower grit. I think this is almost like a 60 or 80 grit, and then I went back to this. So I think it looks good. Okay, so we're gonna go use our razor blade. We're gonna bevel these edges, and then we'll drill our stitching holes. Just like before, we're just going to take our razor blade and just glide it along the edge. Very slow. Take your time. And this will create your edge bevel. Sometimes you're going to go a little too much. It's not going to be perfect. It's never going to be perfect if you're doing it like this. But again, we're on a budget. Okay, hopefully you guys can see that. Not too bad. We don't have our stitching groover, our edge groover, so marking these holes, I'm going to do this all by hand, just going all the way down. My welt's about maybe 3/8. I'm going to start right there, and I'm just going to eyeball this all the way down. If you can see there, I've got my holes marked, all freehand, about 1/4 inch apart, just marked them, and now we're going to drill it out. And with the hand drill, it's a little tough. You got to make sure that you're going perfectly straight up and down, and that can be a challenge. The holes are drilled. Not too bad freehand. Yeah, there's definitely some that are off. This is the back side. You know, this one right here. front side. We're just going to stitch it up. I mean, not bad for using a hand drill, going by hand. You don't have the steadiness of a drill press because we're on a budget. All right, next step we're gonna stitch this up, and there's a couple circles there from the hand drill. I went too far down. Yeah, we'll see if that can come out with some oil. But edges look pretty good. Not bad for using tools around the house. Let's stitch it up. Not too bad, not too good. That's what happens when you use a hand drill. But it's done. I'm gonna go ahead and throw on some ink oil. Now I am using a wool dauber that was not on the list. You don't have to use it, you could use some, but I'm just going to oil this up, and it'll help weatherproof it, make it look better, it'll darken it, and make it smell pretty good too. Alright, the sheath is done. You can see how certain places darkened because of the oil, but it browned it up pretty nice. You can always stick this out in the sun for like a week, maybe 2 or 3 days on one side, 2 or 3 days on the other, and tan it up a little bit. That'll definitely work. But the oil came out, feels really nice, smells really great. So what do we do here? You know, I gotta say, it's been a long time since I've done this. How I made this sheath is exactly how I used to make them when I was starting out, when I first started doing leatherwork. So you guys who say, I've seen a lot of your comments on my videos saying, oh man, I could never make anything like that. Yeah, you can. And you know, we just made this with just some regular tools around the house. Other than the leather and the stitching, you know, what did we use? So it's not that hard. You know, and take your time. We had no edge beveler, we had no stitching groover, I did not slick any edges, there's no dye, there's no finish, I didn't use any drill press or my belt sander, nothing. And this came out pretty nice. I'll have some pictures at the end of the video of this outside. You can get a better look at it. Sometimes it's hard to get a good look at it on video. You know, the stitching, the line of the stitching isn't exactly perfect. Right here you got some crookedness, but you know, that's going to happen when you're using a hand drill. But so cosmetically, does it look the best? No. What about quality? Yeah, the quality is definitely here. It's the same leather I use, the same stitching, the same glue. It just doesn't look as good, you know. And if you don't have the money for all the dyes and the finishes and all those tools, you can still make a decent sheath for not a whole lot of money. I mean, I'm not going to add up all the costs of the tools I was using. But, you know, there you go. Thanks for watching, guys. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them at the end of the video in the comment section. And as always, thanks, guys. Have a good one out there.